That would have never happened in an office. That's the kind of power these activities can have.
The horses in some ways force us people to embody our emotions. The horses have a groundedness, the stability that can be adopted.
Oh, I love that. I love the way you said that. And this process today has been more productive than trainings that I have attended in the past that were specifically geared towards that.
Welcome back, everybody. Today we have an interview with Linda Richards of Horses Healing Hearts. Linda and Lynn run a equine assisted psychotherapy practice a little south of where I live here. Today's interview is going to be a fascinating exploration of what equine assisted psychotherapy actually is and does, and how the particular practice will draw up and out the emotions and behaviors that need resolution in a unique and physical way, as opposed to other forms of psychotherapy. Before we get into the interview, I will do a little bit of a critique on the current website, and this is before Linda implements some of the changes that you'll see later on. Let's get started with a view of the homepage. So the first thing I'll say is that the design language is a little lacking. We don't really have much in the way of design here as far as elements to look at. We've got just a little bit of text. We have this text down here. We'll need to scroll down to get to it. Bring that text down into the image, and the image be a background. Title here really needs to be the hook. And we can take this text itself and actually use this as a title up in the corner, and then use this as a background instead. Now you'll see it later on, but we came up with a new tagline and hook for her website. I won't spoil that for you. If you can't wait, go ahead and skip ahead into the interview where we come up with new language. I created a quick replacement. We have Horses Healing Hearts Equine Assisted Psychotherapy. We can tell the user what they are looking at, and then really great hook that'll pull you in. In addition to discussing the hook of the website, we also generated a couple paragraphs that could probably replace what we've got here. And because of the hook, people will be motivated to see a little bit more about what it is that equine assisted psychotherapy actually is and does. So how are you doing this morning?
I'm good. How about you?
Good. I'm doing pretty well. We have a young one that's not sleeping very well, and last night was a good night, relatively speaking. So I will take it. All right. So tell me about yourself. Tell me about Horses Healing Hearts, and what brought you to develop your company.
Oh, okay. So I am a licensed clinical social worker. I have been working in the field of mental health for, probably over 30 years. And I have always had a love for horses. I've owned horses, and I worked at a residential treatment facility a long time ago that also incorporated horses in their treatment. And at that time, we suggested that maybe we would explore a little bit more of a structured form of equine therapy at this program. And they liked the way they were doing things. And that was right about the same time that I was also looking at possibly transitioning out of that facility and doing something different. And so I ultimately ended up working at Fort Leonard Wood in the behavioral health service line. And I continued to think about how can I incorporate my horses with helping service members, and did some research, discovered this professional organization called Equine Assisted Growth and Learning Association, or EGALA.
Mm-hmm.
looked into what was required to get in with them, took the trainings, even had the military support the idea of bringing equine assisted psychotherapy to the military on the military base. And they supported me and even paying for the training and getting certified. And then the big budget crash happened.
Mm.
Like, what was that? Like 13 years ago.
Yeah.
And big crash happened. This was the one that people were laid off. And I mean, it was bad. And of course, because of that, they also weren't going to start any new programs. So this whole thing that we had been working on for several years to get going just went away.
Poof, overnight.
It just, yes. And I mean, we were in the process of actually getting referrals for people to start coming to the program. I was bringing my horses onto the installation. They had stables there. They had arenas there. I mean, we had it all worked out. And then, then the crash happened. And so I thought, you know what? I have done this training. I am so excited about offering this, and I'm just going to start my own business. And that is how Horses Healing Hearts was born. And at the time, I still thought, well, I'm going to go ahead and provide these services to the veterans and their families, and come to find out that while I was working with the military, it was a conflict of interest for me to also provide services outside of the installation.
Ah.
So I still couldn't provide the services that I wanted to the military. And
Could you
so
so it wasn't to the military anymore at that point, but could you do it to the military families?
no.
No. Okay.
Anyone who was affiliated with the military, veterans, it didn't matter. Anyone who was affiliated was not, I could not work with them. So instead, I ended up still providing equine assisted psychotherapy to the community, to civilians. We had a couple of groups that we worked with, individuals, families, kids, adults, all sorts of different populations, just not the military population. And then 2 years ago, almost 2 years ago, I retired from Fort Leonard Wood. I had put in my 20 years, and I was super excited about the prospect of, now that I am retired, I can actually do the thing that I've been wanting to do for all of these years. And so that is then when we pursued becoming a military designated program. And what that means is that my partner and I both have the experience, the training necessary to work with the military and veterans and their families by utilizing equine assisted psychotherapy.
Yeah. Yeah. I've heard you share about one person who was experiencing hypervigilance and how the horses came around him, and it was a really positive experience for him. The calming effect of the animals. Yeah.
Right, right. Um, you know, we never walk away from a session bored or having experienced the same over and over and over. Each session is unique, and each session gives my partner and I this huge wow feeling, because I mean, really, honestly, we're not the ones that are doing the work. It's the horses. We facilitate, we process a little with the client, but ultimately, when the client enters the arena or the pasture, um,
Hmm.
it's with the horses, and the horses do whatever they're going to do, and it has this profound effect on everyone.
Yeah. Yeah. It's really fascinating. I look forward to someday being able to experience it as well. What would you say a new client's reaction to the horses are typically, or maybe it's so diverse you can kind of share some anecdotes here and there?
Um, a lot of people who come to us for the first time with the equine therapy have not had any horse experience at all. And so
Hmm.
they worry about that. They worry that, well, I've never been around horses. I don't know anything about horses. And so they usually have a little bit of an anxiety there.
Hmm.
About the whole idea of being in with the herd. And just to kind of give you a little bit of perspective. So my treatment team, my equine treatment team consists of 6 individuals. And so those individuals range in size from a pretty large horse all the way down to a mini donkey. Once they have had the opportunity to meet each individual, recognize that they aren't going to hurt them. The horses usually approach and are curious about the new person. And so once that happens, that's there's more of a comfort, and then they're able um, to identify who it is that they feel comfortable working with. So I'm looking out my window right now. So this is pure coincidence. When I came to work this morning, all of my horses were in another field.
Hmm.
Them, and I'm sure they saw that I was coming, but they were in another field. I am looking out my window now, and every single one of them is not only in the field that faces my office, but they're all looking at me. I don't know what that is. And their ears are forward. I don't know if they can actually hear me inside the
Yeah.
building. I don't, if they're far enough away, I wouldn't think that they could hear me. But it's really interesting. These are those little nuances that when we're in session, we then explore that. Is it just pure horse behavior? Of course it is. But a person that doesn't know much about horses may then interpret that as being something. Wow, they saw me coming and now they're there and they really like me. And you can
Yeah.
interpret it in so many different ways. And that's that power then. And we as therapists do not interfere with that. We don't say, oh, psh, they just heard you coming and they probably think that you have something sweet that you want to give them. We don't do
Right.
that. We
It,
allow the person to interpret what that behavior means.
right. And in some ways, we can trust that the person's instinct on how to interpret is what they need.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I like that. Yep.
Yeah. So the instinct to interpret certain behaviors is maybe the subconscious of the person telling them what they need, and they see what they need through these other creatures, through these horses, and I think it's alien enough for a lot of people that they say, well, maybe they understand, maybe they know what I need.
Hmm.
But in there could be on that perspective on that side. But I think also on the other side of things, there's there's a real there is a reality that certain creatures can sense things in us that we can't sense. So like uh, people who are prone to epileptic episodes, they may have a dog
Right.
and a therapy dog that detects it. Like maybe that's a smell, a pheromone that they give off, or there's little subtle behaviors that the dog picks up, but other people around them don't pick up. And I assume there's a mixture as well, where where the horses pick up things about the person and behave in a certain way after being trained for so long with like people, with like problems, and they can sense something that we as humans can't sense, smell or behaviors.
So, and you said something really interesting just now. You said having been trained with people. Um, so the responses that we receive in the arena, when the horse, because most of the time the horses are at liberty, which means they're just freely roaming
Hmm.
around. They're not necessarily in a halter and on a lead rope. Um, at that time, it's not about the horses having any kind of special training. It
Right.
is about their instinct, like you were saying, their instinct to respond to whatever energy the person puts out. So
Yeah.
they're going to respond to that, and they're going to respond to even as intimate as a person's heart rate.
Yeah.
Uh,
And when I say train, I think it's more about not you training it, but the situation trains. It's more like learning. It's like the the horses will learn human behaviors and learn how to react to the human behaviors in certain ways. So
right,
they become familiar with people who are struggling, who are in the process of healing, and they can in some ways sense, um, they've learned in some ways how humans act, right? As we learn how they act, they learn how we act, and we react to each other in particular, sometimes maybe funny or sometimes really interesting and almost bizarre. It's like, oh, how would they know that I was thinking that, or something like that?
right. Yep.
Yeah. Very fascinating. So tell me about the person that needs what you have to offer.
Um, wow. That is a broad topic.
I'm
So,
sure. Yeah.
so the probably the briefest way of saying that is anyone who is looking for therapy.
Right.
They'll come into an office, sit down, talk to somebody, kind of a therapy, can also benefit from equine assisted psychotherapy. It's just a different model. Instead
Hmm.
sitting in an office talking about whatever problem they're presenting with, they're actually in the arena and they are working through whatever that problem may be through metaphor.
Hmm.
So, what we have found is that um, equine assisted psychotherapy can be considered a brief therapy. So, something that might take a while to do in the office may take less time to do in the arena because the person actually has opportunity to practice coping skills, or to practice anger management, or to practice better communication,
Hmm.
or whatever it is that they're presenting with. They can actually practice it rather than talk about it and then walk out the door. And by the time they're down my driveway, they have forgotten half of what we've already talked about. And
Right.
this is tactile. It is something that they can actually experience, and they can experience the outcome right away. So I
Yes.
did this, and this didn't work, but then I changed my tactic and I tried this other thing, and that really did work. And taking that then into their life, and being able to utilize those techniques right away.
Yeah. Yeah. It seems to me that the psychotherapy that others may receive elsewhere has, in some ways, the opportunity to just stay in the head. But when you are out and about with real creatures, physically there, physically present, physically, moving, um, there's not so much opportunity to stay in their head. They have to act, begin to embody what their mind is going through. And
Mhm.
that embodiment allows more interaction with these with the horses. Um, the horses help bring the behaviors, the ideas, the emotions that the person is holding interiorly. They help bring it out, because pretty much the only way to act with horses is to physically act. We can't act with our mouths like we do with each other, through words. We have to act through physicality.
Mhm. Yeah. So a really good example of that is a session that we did with some service members. Um, and during that session, they were asked to catch and halter um, one that they picked out. And for whatever reason that morning, the energy was high and the horses were, I mean, they were just running circles and literally running. We're not just talking kind of like leisurely trotting. They were full of energy, probably something to do with the energy in the arena.
Hmm.
Um, they were picking up on that. And so they were just full out running. There's always two people in the arena, two professionals in the arena, and it is our role to maintain safety. But there
Right.
was clearly something going on. And eventually the horses settled, and the person or the group was able to catch and halter one of them. And we processed afterwards, asking, can you tell us a little bit about what that was like for you? And one of the service members stepped up and said, this took me back to Iraq, constantly looking out for this threat and the other. And he said, this was exactly like that. This was me looking out for my buddies and making sure these horses weren't going to run over anybody. And that metaphor of those horses representing that threat that he had experienced in Iraq. But
Hmm.
he also recognized, and this was the cool part, I realized that you all were keeping us safe. And that brought me back. I knew that I was actually here, that I was in the United States, and that in the United States I'm safe, and that I don't have to protect my buddies all the time. That would have never happened in an office, at
Yes.
least in a 20-minute period of time. We learned something about him. He learned something about himself, or not learned, but realized. And that's the kind of power these activities can have, is that you, like you said, you learn on the spot right there, and can utilize that information when you leave.
Yeah. Yeah. It seems to me that the need to embody the emotions is the key. And the fact that the horses don't know English, so you can't just say what you're feeling. You have to allow the feeling to kind of um, manifest in your body, not just on your tongue.
Mhm.
That allows things to become real. And when things become real, we realize them, and then we can allow that to do some of the emotional work that needs to be done, and probably wouldn't ever be able to be done outside of this sort of a therapy.
Mhm. Right.
Yeah, very fascinating. So um, the horses in some ways force the us people to embody our emotions. So whatever is being trapped is able to come out and forward, and be resolved.
Mhm.
And through that action, through that mode, it causes either the horse to become um, subconscious or even consciously the issue that we're dealing with or its resolution, and the horses have the groundedness that I think groundedness is a word that's coming to me, a groundedness that allows the stability that can be adopted by the individual. What are
Hmm.
your thoughts on that?
Oh, I love that. I love the way you said that. Yep, that's exactly what it is.
Yeah. This is what you offer. Let's just focus on how it's being offered in your brand. The what we're offering is equine therapy, and it's not so much that it's horses, although that could be a positive aspect. So like my wife loves horses. But the horses offer something unique in this groundedness, in this real physicality aspect that allows those emotions to come up and out and be resolved. Um, and the other creature can become the problem or its resolution, and it can be dealt with. How do we communicate that to the person who needs it?
So I'll be real honest with you. We communicate that by giving a very brief description of what they may expect in the arena and advising them that it'll make a lot more sense once they're in the arena. Because you and I now have been talking for a while now in order to come up with this picture of what equine therapy can look like, to explain it to a new client who just walks in and says, um, I'm I'm here, I need therapy, uh, how can you help me? And I provide them a mixed bag of we can do this, that, or the other. And when I suggest equine therapy, usually I get a big question mark look, like what? How are horses going to help me? And um, at that point, then I say something basically like what I said to you right at the beginning, to be able to experience the challenge and the resolution directly by being actively involved in that process with the
Yeah.
horses. Um, and then I still get a question mark look because it doesn't make any sense how horses would have anything to do with that. And just me going in, as a matter of fact, we just had someone the other day who came in and said, so I mean, he was here for the session, and he was like, so I'm going to be petting horses the whole time. It's like, no, that's not it. Um, and by the time it was over and he had been introduced to the team, he was asked to engage in an activity with the horses that represented what he was there to work on. And when he walked out, he said, I get it. But I get it because I did it. And so that is the challenge. We can talk to people and we can give them examples, and people kind of have an idea of what equine therapy is, but it still is a mystery as to how this really works, to just go and be in an arena or in a pasture with horses, and how's that going to fix me? So that mystery tends to get solved once they're in that environment and they actually have the opportunity to work through something.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm thinking about what it is that this person needs to hear, and how how we might communicate this groundedness, earthiness, physicality. It draws the person out of the mind and into the body.
Yeah.
Um, and that motion out of the mind and into the body is the call that we're trying to uh, give the other person. And when that person comes, then the horses do the same. They draw the person out of the mind and into the body. And I'm thinking about like a phrase. If we were to come up with a hook or tagline or something for Horses Healing Hearts, it's about engaging with these majestic creatures and finding a feeling of being grounded. And maybe we can go with that a little bit more, or maybe we can think of a different way of saying that it's being drawn, in some ways, drawn out of oneself.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
What are your thoughts on that?
I like that. And you definitely have a way with words, and you definitely have a way of interpreting all the things that I just said in like one sentence.
Well, that's exactly what I do. See, we're doing the same thing. There's you can't really know what it is until you experience it, right? Yeah, engage with majestic creatures and discover a feeling of being grounded.
I love that. Yeah.
Yeah, and it helps the horses draw up and out emotions and behaviors that need resolution in a unique and enjoyable, therapeutic, for sure. What's the term I'm looking for? There's a uniqueness to it, but there's also an attraction to it. Draw the that's the motion that I'm kind of feeling, is
Mhm.
this drawing out of oneself. It's like somebody beckoning to you, like a friend beckoning to you, hey, come spend time with me. And
Mhm.
instead of being cooped up indoors with no windows or whatever.
Mhm. Mhm.
So
Right.
that's what their mind is doing.
Yeah.
Their mind is opening up, and they're venturing out of doors, um, and they step out into the clearing.
You know, that's beautiful, because as you're saying that, so really that is happening on multiple levels. That's
Yeah,
happening both externally and internally.
right. And the fastest way to the emotions is through the body. It's not exactly through the mind.
Hmm.
It's going through the body into the mind. And people, I think, are mistaken to think the only way to treat the mind is through words.
Hmm. Right. And that is where this is so much different. Um, like you just said, if somebody comes into the office and we do the traditional therapy model, there's a lot of talking that goes on, and and maybe even a lot of talking from the therapist. Um,
Yeah.
and in the arena, the two professionals work together to get a full picture, and in a way stepping out of the story that is unfolding in the arena between the human and the equine, and allowing the person to work through whatever it is that they came in with, and doing that on their own with little to no guidance from the therapist, from the professionals.
Yeah, you're letting the natural therapy, if you will, of being with these creatures take its course. Like I said earlier, we often mistakenly believe that the only way to treat the mind is through words.
Some people don't want to talk about their trauma. They have the symptoms that are associated with the trauma, and they're trying to find a way to manage those symptoms that go along with the trauma, but they don't necessarily want to talk about it. And this form of therapy gives them the opportunity to work through it without having to talk about it in detail. And they can
Yeah.
still and work through the symptoms that go along with the trauma and
Yeah. Yeah.
to deal with that.
A major hurdle in dealing with, especially early childhood trauma, is finding the words for it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we don't have to find words for it.
Mm-hmm.
Not exactly. Sometimes finding words is extremely helpful, but maybe finding the words presents a hurdle that doesn't need to be there.
Mm-hmm.
That's another unique way, is you don't have to find the words because your body will say it for you.
Exactly. Yep.
Yeah. Oh, that's another wonderful thing, because sometimes I think people can be intimidated by needing to articulate stuff, and you just skip right past that. You don't need
Yeah.
that. Oh, that's a really great point as well. I'm going to write that down. Engage with majestic creatures and discover a feeling of being grounded. People often mistakenly believe the only way to treat the mind is through words. Our horses draw up and out emotions and behaviors that need resolution in a unique and physical way. Sometimes it happens in ways that would never happen in traditional therapy. Often as well, articulating trauma or struggles presents a major hurdle. We can skip right past that and let our bodies say it for us.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
Wow. That's really good.
that feels really good too. Yeah, it feels good to me. Like, everything that we were talking to up to this point is packaged. Yeah, in a way that you can present this actually to the people who need you.
Mm-hmm. Thank you so very much for pulling that all together. Wow.
Yeah. Can you tell I enjoy this?
I can. And and as you were talking, all I kept thinking was this he's really he's listening to what I'm saying, and he's able to interpret that, being somebody who doesn't, I'm assuming, doesn't know anything about equine therapy, and you're
Yeah.
able to draw that those words, those phrases, you're able to draw that out and truly embody that. And that's quite the talent. Pretty amazing to me.
Well, thank you. Yeah. Yeah. What would you like to do with this?
Well, definitely use that. Yeah. Um, memorize it.
Yes, when we create these new ways of thinking about what we do,
Mm-hmm.
and it'll develop into new ways of thinking, not just thinking, but speaking about what we do through our email, on our website, in person, as we're shaking hands, on social media, everywhere. It radically changes how you speak about yourself in all the ways you do. And this is as well from the perspective of the person who needs you. This is saying what they need to hear to understand what you truly offer.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Now, you understand it in yourself, but then communicating it in a way that can be really understood by the other person is a unique second step to that.
Right. Right.
All right. What would you say after having gone through this process with me? What else might you say about yourself, about what you learned about your service, and what you learned about how to communicate it?
Well, I've always known that it's been a challenge for me to communicate it in a more concise manner than what I've done. And I think this is something that all of us who do equine therapy, all of us struggle with that. It often is even the basis of trainings and workshops and helping us, bring more of a concise description into what it is that we do. But ultimately we walk away and we think we have an idea, and then it just kind of goes away, and next thing we know, we're right back at the beginning, and don't have that hook, that description, that statement that truly allows a person to understand what it is that we do. Um and this process today has been more productive than trainings that I have attended in the past that were specifically geared towards that. Trainings that were, full day trainings. And we were
Yeah.
talking about, developing your program, and, all the things that go into that. And you and I accomplished something in a relatively short amount of time
Yeah. 1 hour. Yeah.
that hasn't been accomplished before. So I really appreciate that. Thank you so much. And makes me feel all excited and all re-energized about wanting to get that out there and share that with people, and kind of practicing it on people, right?
Yes.
Putting it out
Yeah.
there and getting some feedback as to, what do you think? This, what do you get when I say this? And yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a wonderful thing to see somebody who knows so well experientially what they do and how valuable it is, and then to see that person, their eyes light up and they realize, "Oh, that's what I do." And
Hmm.
then, "Oh, that's how I communicate what I do." And
Hmm.
that's like two big light bulb moments. Yeah, wonderful.
Yep. That's
Yeah.
exact. Yep.
All right. Well, thank you so much for interviewing with me and for allowing me to help you rediscover what you do and how to communicate it.
Well, thank you very much.
So here is what Linda might do to her website after having gone through this process with me. Equine assisted psychotherapy, engage with majestic creatures and discover a new feeling of being grounded. People often mistakenly believe the only way to treat the mind is through words. Our horses draw up and out emotions and behaviors that need resolution in a physical way. Sometimes it happens in ways that would never happen in traditional therapy. Often, as well, articulating trauma or struggles presents a major hurdle. We can skip right past that and let our bodies say it for us. Thanks again to Linda Richard for engaging with me in this very interesting and fun interview. I enjoyed it